Hello, this is Venture Capital. I'm Katie Pilbeam. A warm welcome to you. Coming up in this week's show, bankers or banksters quite often get a bad rap, blamed for all of the recent financial crashes, whether it be the Great Depression to the recent crash of 2008, described as greedy, ruthless, of having no integrity and costing taxpayers billions of dollars in bailouts. I could go on, but I'll leave it there. Now, these so-called fat cats, are they ready to change their attitude with the help of God? Yes, I'm being perfectly serious. Details to come, bear with me on that one. Plus, international sports stars are here in Russia. Finally, the Sochi Games, they have begun. Ooh. And, well, we're going to be joining our reporter who's in Sochi talking about money, though. So we've got loads on the way. Jam-packed show. Do not move a muscle. Now, so people in general, well, they don't trust bankers, often accusing them of having no conscience or credibility. But Dutch banks are eager to change this and are turning to God for help in doing so. Yep, that's right. Dutch banks, all 90,000 of them, will now swear an oath to do their utmost to preserve and enhance confidence in the financial services industry. Now, this is part of the Dutch government's aim to change its image and to tame the overinflated industry with assets of more than 4 times the size of the country's economy. And if you're thinking that maybe it's just, I don't know, a PR stunt, well, apparently, if the new code of conduct is broken, then the guilty bankster will either get blacklisted or face a fine. And it's not just Dutch banks that are making moves to clean up the image of the banking industry, actually. This week, Barclays chief Anthony Jenkins, he waived his $4.5 billion bonus, and that was for the second year in a row. But not all banking chiefs are taking the moral route. No, our very favourite banker, JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon, he took home his $20 million paycheck last year, despite the abundance of fines we know that his bank has been dealt with. But the point is, overall, it seems efforts are being made. Now, added to this, Lloyds, another British banking empire, has vowed to up their female staff from 28% to 40% in 6 years. Would this make the banking industry more moral? Loads to talk about. We've got bankers declaring oaths, refusing bonuses, well, some anyway, and the prospect of more women in the male-dominated industry. So, does all of this altogether, does it mean a social moral movement in the banking world? Well, let's chew up these numbers and what on earth is going on at the moment with our Brenda Kelly right here, who's involved in the financial world in London from IG. Brenda, the oath taken by the Dutch banking system, is this genius or is it total nonsense?
I think it probably falls somewhere in between the two. I think when you look at what has the reputation of the financial sector since the financial crisis, I think it is quite important that we try and change the point of view of some of the employees of banks. And I think in some respects it does help to make it a more discerning profession, particularly in light of what's happened over the last few years. So I think in some respects it is a good thing. I've had interesting conversations with people in relation to the LIBOR manipulation and the Forex manipulation, and some are trying to draw a difference between the two, whereas in fact I think if you feel that you're doing something incorrect or morally wrong, it doesn't really matter whether it's a small or a big thing. It should actually fall under the same category. So in some respects I think this is a good idea and could be a good template for most banks.
But Brenda, why should the banking industry care what society thinks of them? The money will be made regardless.
Well, that, to be honest with you, is probably quite true. But I do feel that over the last number of weeks, we have seen that there have been a huge amount of redundancies in banks. So clearly, there are problems still facing the banking sector at the moment. It really regards whether or not you feel that the banking sector and the financial sector has been fixed since the height of the crisis. And I feel that this goes some way to trying to make people believe in what their job is, and of course also help to kind of fix the reputational damage there. I think it is important, but I do take your point that clearly banks will make money no matter what, but I think it's trying to turn over a new leaf that is quite important here.
Listen, I want to ask you about Barclays Chief Executive Anthony Jenkins turning down the bonus for the second year in a row. How important is it that banking chiefs do this? Does it have a significance? Do you guys care?
I'm not so certain I care all that much. I do believe that in many respects the bonus is more than likely deferred out a little bit further, and I think it's mostly a PR exercise on behalf of Barclays. Perhaps it is a way of leading by example by the head of the bank, but I certainly feel that if he stays there and gets the bank on its feet once again and proves to its shareholders that he's worthy of a bonus and that he finds himself worthy of a bonus, then I would expect in a few years' time he'll more than make up for the losses that he's made over the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that one at all. Now let's talk about women, because Lloyds are keen to get more female workers in the industry. Would this help in your personal experience? Do women make the industry more moral?
I think it's an interesting case, actually, and I don't subscribe to the view that women are more risk-averse than men. And obviously I work in quite a male-dominated department here, but I think there is a perception there that women do not take more risks. But if you look at risk-taking as a whole, it's generally taken as a financial scenario. But if you actually look at risk as maybe standing up for what's right in the face of opposition, taking an ethical path where there's actually pressure to stray, I think women could actually bring in a little bit more of a collaborative effort in the banking sector, which is more likely to show successful risk-taking. There have been studies shown that men are inclined to, there are two different weighting on factors for risk-taking. Two of them are the likelihood that the risk in question will help hit strategic objectives. The second is the effect the risk will have on the people involved. Men are more inclined to focus on the former, women are more inclined to focus on the latter. So I think bringing in more female staff into senior management could really create a collaborative effort and make the risk-taking that is inherent to banking and to profits a more successful and a more moral question of making money.
Absolutely. Thank you ever so much. That's Brenda Kelly right there from IG talking to us in London today. Now, moving on, the Sochi Games are now on, and already a record breaker for the most expensive Olympic Games in history. We know that much. And even when I say the price tag now, the $51 billion, I gasp. But it's been spent now, it's done and dusted. But the good news is the Games are expected to generate the most revenue in history too. Now, I'm talking television advertisements, sponsorships, merchandise, even private jets. So let's talk to Andrew Farmer right now, who is in Sochi for us. So Andy, Sochi is set to make money then for plenty of people.
Well, it should do. I mean, in terms of associated advertising revenue, $500 billion is expected to be generated, and it sounds like a staggering amount, but you do have to remember that something like 3 billion people around the world will watch the Games on their television sets. So for advertisers, it is seen as something of a golden ticket, and that's why you do get the likes of McDonald's, Panasonic and Visa all queuing up to be official sponsors of Sochi 2014.
Yeah, huge names. And obviously, in addition to that, you've got all the people going to Sochi to watch the Games, of course, which means great business for local companies.
It is brilliant for the local economy. We're hearing that something like 140,000 people will visit Sochi during these Games. Of course, they all need somewhere to stay, so hotels are going to benefit. Something like 20,000 new hotel rooms were built for these Games, and all of those have been taken. And on top of that, you have the shops and cafes and restaurants that are going to benefit, and of course the local taxi companies, which, as we know, always put up the prices. So it's very lucrative for Sochi. And on top of that, of course, when people come to Sochi to watch the Games, they need to buy tickets, and they alone are worth something like $170 million.
Wow, and there's some high rollers in town as well, I hear.
Yeah, well, if you drive past Sochi Airport, or even just look out of the aeroplane window, you will see a lot of private jets on the tarmac. Incredibly, they are paying up to $65,000 a day just to park there. Oligarchs are spending a lot of money keeping their jets in Sochi during these Games, and over the course of 3 weeks, the airport expects to generate something like $42 million from this. And you think, well, are you sure about that? And they do tell us reports that something like 650 people have already inquired about parking their jets at Sochi Airport during the game. So a huge, huge money spinner for many people.
My goodness, that is big money there, Andy. Well, thank you so much indeed. I know you're a very busy man. It's exciting times there in Sochi with the games now underway. Can't believe it. Enjoy yourself. Goodbye. And when it comes to the athletes, well, the value of winning a big, shiny gold medal depends on the country that they're from, because each country awards their own sports stars. So, starting with the Italians, well, they're the most generous to their athletes, would you believe, with a homecoming reward of $182,000 right there for each medalist. Forget about debt, forget about recession. They're getting a nice, juicy package there. We've got Russia up next right here where it's all going on, 114,000. And Sochi's just about there, by the way, if you wondered. Chinese champs, they'll get 135,000 for their sporting efforts. USA's a little bit more modest here with 25,000, but they tend to get the most in sponsorships. And we've got the UK right here, yeah. 0 for their stars. They'll just have to make do with the medal, won't they? Sorry, Brits. Moving on. According to Fitch credit rating agency, the debt created by the Sochi 2014 Olympics will be, in their words, manageable. The agency said that the region is well diverse and there is a steady flow of funding from the federal government. Many of Russia's state-owned banks are providing loans to Olympic projects, which in Fitch's eyes makes the debt less risky. Investors are hoping that the costly infrastructure projects will provide income for the region with international and domestic tourists for decades to come. That's the idea. All right, now, let's crack on and let's get corporate. We're going to start with Russian banks because last week I mentioned that VTB Banking Group had stopped working with Fitch after being downgraded in January. Now Fitch has withdrawn its rating for VTB. Before doing so, it reaffirmed the bank's BBB- status. VTB, Russia's second largest lender, accused the agency of a lack of professionalism and now only operates with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. And moving on, Russian retailer Lenta has announced it will hold 2 IPOs, one in Moscow and one in London. The stock available is believed to be up to $1 billion worth. This is in response to last year's profits soaring by $200 million. And Russian fast food chain Terimok will open 2 restaurants in New York this year. The company specialises in Russian pancakes, both sweet ones and savoury. They're extremely popular here in Russia. People have them for a meal, and I thoroughly recommend the sour cream one. Yummy. Yeah. OK, so I've got a bit of an appetite for you. I hope that that's quenched your appetite for venture capital this week. If it hasn't, get on Twitter. I'll be involved all this week. I'm going to be talking about Sochi, of course. It's up and running. And, well, I'm going to say goodbye. So take care of yourselves. Have a great week and see you on Twitter.